When you think of the NFL, you're probably picturing the giants of the league, right? The Packers, the Bears, the Giants. But what if I told you that some of the teams that were there at the very beginning, at the league's creation, have been completely erased from history? Well, let's dive into the story of one of them.
Meet the Rochester Jeffersons. These guys were in the room where it all happened, a founding member of what we now call the NFL. So why have most of us never even heard their name? That's the mystery we're going to unpack today.
You see, their story isn't just about some team that failed. It's about how this small club from upstate New York, just for a little while, stood shoulder to shoulder with the absolute pioneers of professional football.
And to really get how they reached that incredible height, we have to go way back to the very beginning, to a neighborhood field where the game was played for the pure love of it, not for a paycheck.
It all started way back in 1898. Just a ragtag group of teenagers playing ball on a field off of Jefferson Avenue in Rochester. And that's it. That's where the name came from. They weren't some fierce animal or mythological figure. They were just the Jeffs.
The real game changer, though, was the arrival of one guy, Leo Lyons. He joins as a teenage player, and just 2 years later, he's basically running the whole show. He's the manager, he's the money, he's the hype man, he's everything. And it's his ambition that takes him from just a local club to New York State champions by 1916. So naturally, he starts looking for even bigger dragons to slay.
So after pretty much conquering New York, Leo Lyons and the Jeffs set their sights higher, on the national stage. They wanted to prove that they could hang with the absolute best teams in the entire country.
So what does Lyons do? He schedules the ultimate test, a game against the Canton Bulldogs. We're talking the undisputed kings of football, led by the one and only Jim Thorpe, who was arguably the greatest athlete on the planet at the time. This was a massive, massive gamble.
And the result? Oof, a complete and total annihilation. The final score was 41-0. But here's the crazy thing. In losing the game, they actually won respect. The sheer audacity to even challenge the Bulldogs? That put Leo Lyons and the Rochester Jeffersons on the national map.
And that notoriety really paid off. Just 3 years later, when the call went out to form a brand new professional league, guess who got an invitation? Leo Lyons. He was right there in that famous Hupmobile car dealership in Canton, representing Rochester as a founding father.
And this really shows you their place in history. That new league, the American Professional Football Association, was the direct forerunner to the NFL. So the Jeffersons weren't just some early team. They were an original pillar of the league that absolutely dominates American sports today.
But this is where their story takes this really fascinating and honestly tragic turn. Because once they joined the big leagues, the Jeffersons ran into this bizarre problem that trapped them in a total no-win situation. It's a strategic nightmare now known as the Rochester Paradox.
So here's the deal. The Jevs were strong enough to absolutely demolish any local non-league team they played. No contest. But at the same time, they were nowhere near good enough to compete with the other charter members of the NFL. And this created a huge problem for getting fans in the seats.
I mean, think about it from a fan's perspective. Why would you pay to see a game when you already know the outcome? If the Jeffs played a local team, you knew it was going to be a blowout. Super boring. If they played an NFL team, you knew they were going to get crushed. Totally discouraging. There was just no drama, no suspense, nothing to sell at the box office. And this paradox just created a death spiral. Awful attendance meant no money. No money meant they couldn't sign top talent. They even tried and failed to get the legendary Red Grange. And of course, without top talent, their performance on the field got even worse, which, you guessed it, drove away even more fans. It was just this vicious cycle they could never escape.
So, all those financial problems inevitably led to a historic disaster on the field, and that pretty much sealed the team's fate for good.
Just look at this. From 1922 to 1925, their last 4 years in the league, the Rochester Jeffersons did not win a single NFL game. Not one. 0 wins, 21 losses, and 2 ties. It's truly one of the bleakest stretches in the entire history of the league. And the man who built it all from nothing, Leo Lyons, he was so desperate to keep the team afloat that he actually made himself the head coach in 1923, even though he had no experience. He poured every penny of his own money into the team until he had nothing left, and he eventually even lost his house.
The end? Well, it came in stages.
First, they couldn't afford a home field, so they had to become a traveling team for their last 2 seasons. Then, they suspended operations after 1925. And finally, by 1928, the Rochester Jeffersons franchise just ceased to exist.
But here's the thing about Leo Lyons. After losing his team, his dream, and his fortune, he didn't just walk away from the league he helped create. He actually stayed on as an unofficial historian, preserving the story of the league, including, of course, the story of his own forgotten team.
And that just leaves us with a really fascinating thought, doesn't it? The NFL today is this multi-billion-dollar empire, but its foundation is built, at least in part, on the stories of teams like the Jeffersons, the failures and the forgotten pioneers that had to disappear for the league to survive. Makes you wonder, how many of today's successes are built on forgotten failures?